Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football with Miami Talk, courtesy Cam Underwood from State of the U. Please join him and the rest of the staff over on SB Nation. Somebody commented in the live chat to remind me that we will have some post-game conversation on the big games on my main channel, but each and every week, the Wholesome One here on YouTube will supply us with a post-game report on Miami football over on our Miami channel. Ryan Willis, a pretty accomplished quarterback, had a nice season for Virginia Tech last year. 8 touchdowns, 5 picks this year, 61% completion percentage. Their leading rusher from last year, Deshaun McClease, is back, but only averaging 3.8 yards per carry in college football. That's pretty abysmal, folks. It's 5.5, 6 yards per carry. If you look at some of the not even elite backs, just capable running backs and teams in college football. So Virginia Tech issues running the football. They have yet to reach the end zone by their top back. You remember any of these Florida kids that ran off to Virginia Tech? Anybody in particular that you're aware of, Cam?
Absolutely. Their number 2 running back who should be starting is Keyshawn King from Oakleaf. He went to the same high school as Shaq Quarterman went to. He's a freshman up there now. I think he might be a redshirt freshman. He's a guy that Miami had initial contact with in the recruiting class a couple of years ago. It was either the 18 or 19 class. I forget which one. But yeah, he's from the Jacksonville area, and he's averaging 5.6 yards a carry on 34 carries right there. So if you're looking for, but only 8.5 carries a game, but he's, almost as productive as the number 1 back McClease from his, number 2 role. So if there's a guy, you definitely want to look at Keyshawn King for being the guy from Florida on their roster. There are another couple guys. I don't remember them off the top of my head. But I definitely remember Keyshawn King because I know that I wrote that, we might want to go after him because he was 2 years after 2 years. Yeah, I think he was 2 years after Shaq. So he redshirted last year as a redshirt freshman now, I want to say, or whatever. But yeah, that's a guy. And, he already has almost 200 yards rushing and is averaging almost 6 yards a pop. So that's a guy from Florida who's obviously impacting, being a very positive impact for them in the run game, which, like you said, is struggling, but not necessarily with him when especially, didn't he have a 100-yard game? Yeah, he had 100 yards against Furman, 12 for 119. So 9.92. But then again, in all the other games, 3.3, 3.8, 2.6. So maybe his stats were buoyed a little bit by, a nice big day against some bad competition. Either way, Keyshawn King, running back, is a guy who Miami at least had initial contact with on the recruiting trail who ended up at Virginia Tech.
This is what we do. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, talking up the Canes each and every week with Cam Underwood from State of the U, 8 o'clock Eastern time every Wednesday night. We'll set up Cam for the next question. Matt Cruz thinks you're closer than others do. Miami 2 tackles away, meaning left and right, not just 2 tackles, actually bringing a guy to the ground. 2 tackles along the offensive line and a kicker away from seriously competing. Cam.
Hey, look, it could be either one, matter of fact. Because if you have a tackle in that Florida game, on the 66-yarder, if we call it that play, there was a play in the North Carolina game where if you have a tackle, he doesn't score or break loose. I mean, you really could talk about that in either guys, whether that is roster-based offensive tackles or getting somebody on the ground for a specific play. I mean, from a talent standpoint, I think I agree. I think that, Bubba Baxa has the talent. I just don't know what the disconnect is between the performance for him. But he definitely has the talent. He has a strong leg. I've seen him hit from 60 in warm-ups in the stadium. Offensive tackle-wise, the staff took the bye week to reevaluate the offensive line. They shuffled some guys around, but they said, they're going to stick with the same 5 up front. So we'll see what happens with that. You bring in a Jalen Rivers next year from Oakleaf High School. Him and Chance Williams, who plays defensive end, but you bring in Rivers, who's a 4-star. He plays O-tackle. Chris Washington from Nashville. Maybe get another couple guys there and try to see, if you can develop some of the guys on the roster. So, there hopefully should be reinforcements coming, but it's still, I think a lot of this mentality, that Manny Diaz was talking about, just getting that woe is me, that, oh, here we go again kind of thing going, or getting that out, not accepting that and just killing that mindset. And that's tough. I wrote about that when Miami was mired in the losing streak to Florida State and said, look, you got to beat them twice. You got to beat them on the field, and you got to beat the idea out of them that they can come back and win this game, because they've done it in any circumstance for many years. It's the same thing with this team. You have to win the mind and the game. So you're battling two battles concurrently. So we'll see what happens. But, I see the Clemson fan who's in the chat talking about, Miami is going to, destroy their defense, is going to wreck Virginia Tech, and Miami is going to cover. From your lips to God's ears, I really hope and desire that to be the case. I have not seen anything to make me think that that's going to be the case, even including that blowout loss by 5 touchdowns that they had to Duke last week, Virginia Tech, that is. It's going to take Miami stepping up and playing that way, and I haven't seen that yet.
So look at the 2 games that Virginia Tech played against ACC and Power 5 competition. So throw out the Old Dominion win. And again, we're talking Old Dominion, who they lost to last year by 2 touchdowns, beat them by 2 touchdowns, beat Furman, but only scored 24 points. Gave up 35 to a pretty marginal Boston College offense, gave up 45 to Duke. The Canes have scored 20 and 20 against their 2 Power 5 opponents, Florida and North Carolina. Correct? No, scored 28-25 against North Carolina. So in the low 20s against the 2 opponents, maybe they get healthy on that defense, Cam.
Maybe. I would like that. Clemson alum 98 in here says, Miami 27, Virginia Tech 3, chalk it up. Hey, like I said, I would appreciate that. I would love that if that were to happen. I just don't see it yet, and even with the talent that Miami has, you take a step back at wide receiver, losing Amon Richards, losing Lawrence Cager, who's balling at Georgia, by the way. Those kind of guys, just not making plays like that on the outside. Jaron Williams not necessarily taking and hitting the shots down the field and things like that. Even though I did see the stats that he's only 1% or 1.5% lower on his downfield throws of more than 20 yards. But I mean, you got to hit them too. You know what I mean? Or as opposed to other top quarterbacks, the frequency with which they throw the ball deep. But it's a lot of dink and dunk right now. It reminds me of what Matthew Stafford was doing for years in Detroit, because I'm a Lions fan. Leave me alone. But you get rid of some of those guys with that mentality and skill set where they're supposed to be close in line, and he's chucking the ball down the field a little bit more. Now, I'm not saying that Jaron Williams is Matthew Stafford. I don't think that he has that kind of arm or anything. However, the engagement of the offense, the distribution of the passes is different. You're going down the field. And look, I know that a lot of times you're throwing to the tight ends up the seam and everything, and those are your longer throws. I need wide receivers, man. Was, Jeff Thomas, Mark Pope, Mike Hardley, he broke out for a touchdown, but that was a now route. That was a immediate at the line screen. That was a 12-yard throw to the sideline, and he broke loose for 40. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I entered this year maybe a little bit optimistic and hopeful, but now I'm once bitten, twice shy. So show and prove before I believe it.